AM 1300 KGLO.
It is time for the Ask the Mayor program here in your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO and KGLOAM.com. John Lee, the Mason City Mayor, joining us.
Hey, good morning, Bob.
What's going on?
Just enjoying the day. Got school started this week, so
School started for you.
for teachers. Yeah, for sure. We're on the clock. Got there Tuesday. Some of us on Monday. I was there Monday, and this week is your in services. We got open house today at the high school from 10 to 6. So if your kids go to the high school and you want to get out there a little bit early, we got open house from 10 to 6 today.
All right. Well,
Step on out, say hi.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into the business of the last council meeting and what else is going on in the community here in the last couple of weeks since our last visit, you and I were having our history geek moment, I
very
guess.
much so.
I'll just turn it over to you because you went down into the archives and wanted to dig out some information from way back in the past.
I went to the city hall, and Aaron Burnett and I and Pamela and Diane went down to the original minutes. We have a vault down there, and we pulled out a couple of them. Felt like I was in Hogwarts, like opening up these leather-bound books, right? But we found the original 1870 minutes, the very first minutes of the what do you would call it? But basically, in March 8th, 1870, and saw the first minutes of the very first city council meeting, which was fantastic. And I think, as a history teacher, it tells you a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I mean, because because there were certain things in the first couple of ordinances that really show what the town was having to address.
Correct. The temperature of the town. Like, why did the citizens say, okay, we need to get our hands wrapped around this pretty quick? Like the very first one is the auctioneers had to pay a permit per auction. They had a hotel motel tax, like number 3, like $5 a night or stay or something like that.
Right.
Liquor stores, $200 permit per year, which to me seems, I don't know what that'd be today.
1870.
For 1870, $200. Jugglers had to pay per performance, which is just, you don't think jugglers, but they had to pay.
And we don't see too many juggling performances.
We obviously had problems with people showing or being nude in the rivers because they said there was no more showing nude body parts in any of the rivers in the incorporated town. So
of course, people would go skinny dipping back then, probably a little bit more than we would think about wanting to go do that now.
Correct. And so, no, it's just fascinating. It really kind of tells you the temperature of what Mason City was at, where we were about 1,200 people. And those were the priorities, of Mason City. And they platted out some things. They gave Marshall some really broad powers to arrest people for drunkenness. Saloons had to be closed by 10 p.m. So no, it was interesting, and I plan on getting down there. I only read the first 2 pages. I'll send you the pictures, and you can, if I don't know if you can.
We'll on our Facebook feed of our conversation, I will drop that into the comments.
Okay, that'd be fantastic.
So people can look at those.
It's fun, and I'm just that's what I do as a history teacher. Obviously, I love the true primary documents in history because it tells more than just what's on that page.
And back in 1870, it looks like it was all handwritten out.
Oh yeah,
those ordinances.
The handwriting is spectacular. I joke, is that how you became the minutes or the clerk? Because
of that handwriting.
It looks like a font.
Yeah,
it looks perfect. It's crazy. I could never do that.
I could never do that either. That was probably one of the things that I didn't get out of a Mason City education was good handwriting.
Yeah, the nuns hit me across my fingertips a couple times.
There you go. Anyway, so and I think hopefully we can dive into the history books off and on through our conversation.
I would love that. I will make that a project for me.
All right. Let's talk about things that are 2026 first of all.
Yeah, jump ahead 156 years, whatever it is.
Well, we probably need to do an update on the garbage and recycling, the Cart Smart program, because the biggest thing now is at first extra bags of garbage are going to be allowed to be placed on top of the garbage containers. And after some trial and error here, the first month and a half, I guess we're into it now, that's just going to have to be something that's going to be changed.
We tried. I know,
And that was on information that was given to you from other communities
yeah,
that were doing
it was other communities, and we just wanted to try to do right by the citizens. One bag on top, why not? It's not working. It's slowing our guys down. We're creating more garbage on the streets. We can't pick it all up. So we have to stop it. And if you're a person who puts it out every week, I would suggest calling City Hall, upgrading to the next level. If you have the biggest one right now and you're still filling that thing up because you got a lot of kids or whatever the cause or reason is, you can always put tags on them, and then we're going to try to find a way for you to call, text. No one wants to call. I get that. But is there a way to do a quick text with the address and say, come here? As long as it's tagged with, we'll come pick them up. But we can't put bags on top of the bins anymore. It just doesn't work. We tried.
And half the time, it sounds like the bag would just be too much where you get it halfway up with the robotic arm and it would fall off the side. And then obviously you'd have a bigger mess on the street.
Correct. It's like it had to be perfect. It had to have the right weight. Otherwise it blew off or it slid off. And then if it's too heavy, it hit and broke open. If it's too light, it blew off, and had to have the right stuff in it. So it kind of fit to it and not become a ball. There's just no way to predict or to help it. And so we just said, can't do it anymore. We tried.
And like you were mentioning, getting that implemented, it'd be basically like a large item pickup call.
Yeah.
Like you currently have now with large item pickup. You just call or text, like you say, and get that just taken care of easily.
Yep. That's what we're going to do, is make them call. We're going to try to make it as easy, friendly as we can. We don't know what that'll look like. We have some ideas. I don't suggest them now because that's when people hear like, oh, the mayor said it, but we will find it, and we'll try to find the easiest, simplest, best, streamed method to get people to say, hey, come pick up more garbage. We have extra bags, and we all have parties. We all have, Christmas coming up down the road. Well, again, I mentioned that last time, but the holiday seasons are coming up, right, and a lot of people have those. So we just got to try to find a way to streamline it and make it as simple as we can.
That being said, we're a month and a half in. Obviously, there were some issues at the beginning, just kind of a learning process type situation there. But a month and a half into this, things you would say, despite what we've just talked about with challenges, fairly good.
It's going really well. Again, there's no matter what, 20 years from now, there'll still be issues, but for the most part, citizens have done a great job. Our drivers have learned a ton, learning a lot. And so it's becoming pretty efficient. But again, we'll always remind people, like cul-de-sacs, please don't park on cul-de-sacs. That is probably the biggest concern, along with people putting them out in front of or between cars. That's probably the second biggest concern. And then just sometimes people put them too close to mailboxes or power line or those anchor for the telephone poles. Right. Those are probably the biggest issues that we're having. Some people, again, don't get them out before 6 a.m., but getting them out there on time also.
Well, we've had a couple of special visits in the last week to the community. One last week, the director of the Iowa Economic Development Authority, Debbie Durham, was in town to kind of inspect things up at the bike park and maybe a few other things going on around town. And it's always good to have her in the community because she's and we've had her on this program a couple of times through the years. She is a cheerleader for this area.
She really is. It's the first time I've really met her, talked to her. I've shaken her hand a couple of times as councilman. She comes in, but this is the first time I was able to sit down and talk with her a little bit. And she did. She kind of cut her teeth. She said 16 years ago, she was just coming on during the Vision Iowa and right on the heels of our fight for that hotel and that whole project. And she saw that, process and many other projects. So she has become a great cheerleader for us. She's been a great resource. We worked really, really well together. So she came in to see what the latest state funding was, Vision Iowa. But I rode her on the car and showed her other things, State Street and Rock Crest, Rock Glen. We showed her the train down at East Park, which she found fascinating. She goes, who got that started? I said, well, basically Dennis Wilson climbed a fence and started scraping it. And she was fascinated by that. And so she thinks this is steal a line from somebody at one point in town on the march. And she was great. It was good to see her. And we finished down at the Riverwalk and the hotel.
This week, you and I were able to take part in a visit from somebody from Main Street America, as they're doing the reaccreditation process for the Main Street Mason City program, and took that person on a tour throughout the downtown area. And first of all, maybe we should just back up and say, from the aspect of the city, talk about the importance of having Main Street Mason City and that, being a Main Street community.
Yeah, and I'll start because it does start and end with Lindsay and her team, right? Lindsay James actually wears two extremely important hats in this town. Visit Mason City and Main Street Mason City. And sometimes people think they're one and the same, and they are not. Main Street Mason City is across the nation, and it's a very successful program, and not every city has it. But it is a job to bring people, to bring businesses, to bring that city life in our downtown. And so, yeah, you spent way more time with her than I did. Not Lindsay, but the director or
the evaluator for Mason Street America.
And so I wasn't at the conclusion. I just kind of walked through it. But our Main Street program has done a great job at hosting events. They just had the romper,
Mrs. Roper romp.
Yeah, the Roper romp and stuff like that. That's all a Main Street Mason City, and they do a great job of just promoting our downtown. And I know people think we do too much downtown. It's been an argument for 15 years. But if it wasn't for our downtown, I don't know where the city would be. I think that hotel is an example of it, that the heart of a city is this downtown, and that is a hill I will die on for sure.
And we'll have a little bit more about our visit with, we talked with that evaluator for Main Street America. We'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow on the local news, as we'll have that as one of our stories starting tomorrow morning, and get her views on, she had an enjoyable visit in the community, and we was part of the group that took her downtown and through the mall, and to see the improvements and proposed improvements for that. And of course, down to the Riverwalk, and you kind of joined us when we got to the theaters in the mall, and that's been, that's the theaters in the mall. I mean, I keep hearing more and more people talk about.
Yeah, that's
their experiences.
You can get out and see for $5, see 4 old John Wayne, or not all John Wayne, but classic cowboy movies from the 18 or 1930s and 40s. It's really rolling out. We're trying to do it right. We're not trying to overgrow it too fast, but there has been a lot of phone calls. And actually, I think anybody's listening, I think you're going to enjoy it for Christmas season. It sounds like they've gotten a lot of phone calls for people wanting to host some of the classic Christmas movies. Right. And so starting probably around Halloween through Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we're excited about what's going on there. I know it's not every Friday, every Saturday, but I think we will get there.
Well, looking at some of the things from the council meeting the other night, and you had a number of special presentations, special items at the beginning of the meeting, which included honoring the Newman baseball team.
Yeah, I made the joke. I remember, I think it was my sophomore, junior year, the first time we made it down to Marshalltown and just showed up. And back then, I think it was 4 teams. But to see since the early 80s or late 80s, they've won, 9 state championships, 27 appearances, state tied for the record. Obviously they deserve a little bit of recognition. They get plenty of it, but it was kind of nice to honor them down there and say congratulations to Coach Bowl and the team.
And then another athlete, but that did a different accomplishment. Mandy Prowley, running across the state of Iowa.
So yeah, Mandy Prowley, was it 10 years ago, 12 years ago, to kind of bring money or attention to Save the Children or Save the Kids. And she ran across the state of Iowa. It took her 10 days to almost 300 miles, which is insane. And then last year, she decided to do it again. She's become kind of one of the ultra marathoners, and she ran 280 miles in 4 days.
Jeez.
And then a couple years ago, to raise awareness and money for the YMCA, she ran for 24 hours and ran 111 miles in that. And since this is August as a wellness month, I thought it'd be a great time to recognize Mandy and what her accomplishments is. But it's not always about her. It's about showing the community, to get up and move, and it's easier to do. It's not easy. That's not what I mean, but to get up and move just an hour a day. Can you do something a little more? And we just put a lot of time and money into our paths and making this town a little more walkable, rideable, bikeable. And so she's just a shining star of kind of what you can accomplish once your mind gets set.
And you also honored Wellness Month in a separate proclamation.
Yeah, and then you honor Wellness Month. You want somebody there, and Tammy Herzl is doing a fantastic with the Y. A couple years ago, the Y was on looking at closing its doors, which the HVAC system, everything, and Tammy kind of took over that and became president and kind of restructured things. The city kind of helped them out with kind of forgivable loans for 3 years through our local option sales tax, and she's done a fantastic job. And so I wanted to recognize the effort the Wise put forward in Wellness Month, and she's done a great job, and she's kicking off a huge membership push here. They're trying to get 500 memberships this next year, and I hope she achieves it. And no matter what, she just talks about just getting out and moving. Just come down and walk and just move. And I think she's in us, the city, and I and her, and we're all on the same page. Let's just get active and get off the screens.
The other proclamation that you did as in the special items at the beginning of the meeting, International Overdose Awareness Day.
Yeah,
people that were
obviously
locally on that.
Overdose has affected most people, at least by one degree. I've lost a family member to it. This town has lost several this winter to overdose, and they are our families, they are our neighbors, our workers. They're in this community, so we just bring light to it. And Sam Severson down at County Health, received that, and it's obviously something that we need to keep working at. In today's world, the way it's structured, the world that where it to stop it probably will never happen, but it's a fight worth fighting, and that's what they do down there, and they do a great job.
Looking at a few of the items from the meeting on Tuesday night, as we're talking with Mason City Mayor John Lee on the Ask the Mayor program here on KGLO. The denial of the liquor license for Prime Wine and Spirits up on the north side. And obviously this is we were talking about liquor licenses at the beginning, in 1870.
150 years later.
This seems like a kind of, I know the council's had to deal with in the last few years some of these types of things, but this sounded a little bit more unique because the state is actually coming back and saying in this case where that's location will be basically dry for a year after that liquor license expires on September 1st.
Correct. They can't transfer to somebody else. They can't sell it for $1 to somebody else. They can't change the name. That spot, that location, that address, that building cannot hold or sell liquor for the next 12 months. And Chief McKelvey talked to somebody down the state, and they even said, because I think it was Councilman Adams said, after a year, what's next? And somebody at the state goes, we don't know. We've never actually got here before. And the guy's 6 years. And so we'll keep an eye on it. But, it is important that you play by the rules. And they weren't. And it's not just one or two times. They had plenty of opportunities. And so between the city and the state, they came down and said no more.
And the city has had to deal with, and the council has had to deal with liquor license issues in the past. And some of those instances, and correct me on this one if I'm wrong, the council would approve a denial or a recommendation for a denial of a liquor license. The business would appeal down to the state.
And the state can give it.
And the state can still give it to them. And that's been the case in many of the previous times that the council has dealt with liquor licenses, right?
Both.
Both. Okay.
People have gone and applied and got it and applied and been denied.
Okay.
But most mainly, we can say we don't want this, but the state of Iowa can supersede it. For the most part, the state of Iowa is the liquor supplier in Iowa. And then they sell to liquor stores, and the liquor stores sell to the people. So because the state of Iowa acts at, I don't know if it's, but that's how I always thought of it, as they're the actual liquor store in Iowa.
Yep.
And they sell to the other liquor stores, and the liquor stores sell it to the people or to whoever. And so, they just decided that they won't be selling to those, but they can also go ahead and do it if they want to.
Sure. Another item that the council approved, the application for funding for the National Historic Trust for Historic Preservation, the Preserving Black Churches grant program that they have for the St. John's Baptist Church building at 715 6 Southwest. And also the council approved an application for an emergency grant through a state program. And maybe just talk about, the city's tie into trying to preserve that property.
You see all the time on social media, the city needs to save X, Y, or Z, right? city has it's really not in the city's purview to save a lot of buildings. Meaning we can do what we can, set the environment, but it's going to take a lot of citizens who are going to have to volunteer, get down there, work with a committee, and find purpose for it to also raise revenue. Otherwise, we'll be back here again. But right now, that church is a great history to Mason City. It was basically, your black church, Baptist church down on, we're talking, if you go like that road, what is that, 6th Street, right? From Culver's, from the old Shopco, and you run it down there. It's the old right off Powder Street.
Right.
The history of that area, the old Alibi Lounge, Pete's Kitchen. It was the church across the street from,
Right.
and that's kind of Mason City, or a lot of old communities. You got the church, you got the taverns, and then you had Powder Street. And so, no, it would be great to preserve it, and we're going to try to save it structurally. Good bones, but the wood we want to paint. But when it comes down to it, we're going to need volunteers to come up and really help save that building, call and get involved. And that's the thing, because it's a great story and represents a lot about our town.
The other thing that I had on my things to point on from the council agenda back on Tuesday night was irrigation system project out at Highland Park. And next week, we'll probably talk with Brian Pauly on this program a little bit more specifically about that. But there's been, it's one of those, it sounds like it's one of those things that really needs to get done. And unfortunately, there might be a little impact to people who play golf out there once that gets underway.
I think most golfers by that time will understand it. They appreciate it. But this, irrigation systems last between 20 and 30 years. And if I remember the report last year, we were over 50 or about 50 on this irrigation system.
We do.
And so it is one of those things we need. We need to, but how do you do it when it's not winter and not golf season? Right. And we got guys who are golfing early April to late. Well, whenever
the snow melts just enough to get out on the course there's too much snow on the course, we can't go out.
Correct. So, but we're going to hope to get it done this fall. Yeah, but there's a lot of things that one is getting bid and getting the right bids. And just because we put out to bid doesn't mean we go with them. There's been plenty of times in my tenure as council that a bid comes in way overpriced, and we're like, we're gonna have to wait and wait for a better environment where people are bidding against each other, and hopefully we can do that. But hopefully we can do that this fall. And Brian Pauly was kind of optimistic, saying he's heard pretty good things, but again, it comes down to the actual bid and the numbers.
Anything else you want to talk about before I let you go?
We have the World Aerobatics show coming up starting Monday. They're out practicing right now, but I got to sit down with Wayne Forbes, the president of that, and how they came to be. And he's been so impressed by that airport and all the pilots that are out there. And they're, last time they were in America, they're in Nevada, and they had airstrip and no buildings. And here he goes, I think our planes are going to be in buildings. They have kitchens. They have, it's an arms race out there between those guys, and there's some beautiful things. So they're staying, basically, most of them are staying at the Bennigan's, but I would really encourage anybody this Sunday, August 23rd, if you're free around 6:00, go over to Clear Lake. Yeah, the Mason City Mayor said that. Go over to Clear Lake. They're having Olympic March parade from City Hall down to the city park, and they're going to have opening ceremonies, because Wayne Forbes said that. He goes, this is our Olympics. There are 8 nations involved. These are the best stunt pilots in the world, and we're going to issue gold medals. And that's something you don't get to see very often. So what a great opportunity to go out and enjoy it.
Absolutely. So we look forward to it. And of course, all the planes have been buzzing around the airport.
You can hear them. You can see them.
Mayor, we appreciate it as always.
Thanks,
we'll
Bob.
talk to you here in a couple of weeks. Mason City's Mayor John Lee on the Ask the Mayor program here in your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO.